Hey everyone, it's Kelly, and today I'm going to teach you some mat work, some fundamental work, and then we'll get into some deeper Pilates mat work. Not necessarily classical, but definitely some important tools and tips and tricks to help you get stronger in your core, which will help you stabilize your spine, protect your low back, your hips, and such. I have taught this workout a few times recently to some of my mat clients, and they have loved it and asked for me to record it, so that's what I'm doing. So I do have a couple of props. I may or may not need them, but you could have some type of, this is a blanket folded up, or a garden pad, a pillow, a cushion of some sort. Depending on how tight your hips and your low back are, you may need this for some of the work under your head. So that's an option to have nearby. And then also, in case I add some roll-ups, classical roll-ups, you could have a hand weight, anywhere from 2 to 8 pounds to assist you with that. You might not need it, but have it there just in case. And I think that's all we'll use. Who knows, I could change my mind as I go along and grab something else. But for right now, I think that's where we'll start. And I'm going to have you start lying down on your back. If you would, take a moment to like this video, share my channel, subscribe to it, hit the notification bell, all the things so that you can be notified when new videos come out, and it would really help me out. Thank you so much. So go ahead and start lying down on your back. And I always like to start with my knees bent because it generally is the most comfortable as I get situated, especially if you have tight hip flexors. When you go to lengthen your leg out, you may find that you arch your back and it's just really uncomfortable. So knees bent works good. And then, as always, I like to kind of measure that I'm in the center of my mat. For some reason, that is really important to me. And I just want you to start with some breathing. If I'm not mistaken, I taught some of this breath work in my last video last week, but I'm usually a couple of weeks ahead in my videos, so I might not have. I can't remember exactly where I put that. Anyway, so lying down on your back, taking some big, deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you inhale, I'd like you to send the air to your low back. And as you exhale, or when you think you've exhaled completely, exhale a little bit more. So notice as you're breathing, how your spine, how your back body lays on the mat. For the majority of us, I would say it's very common for us to feel heavier in the pelvis than we do in the rib cage against the mat. And it may be the opposite for you, and that's okay. But just notice, like for me, I feel like my sacrum, the lowest part of my spine, is very heavily weighted compared to my back rib cage. Not much different, but enough that I notice it. And so if that's you, I want you to start to practice as you're breathing into your low back, sending that air down into the low back, that you also put a little bit of weight into your back bottom ribs. So for a lot of us, around that T10 through T12 area of our spine, we're a little bit hyperextended. Our ribs may flare apart in the front or just be very wide and unengaged. And you may hear us say in Pilates to knit your ribs together. And that is a very good cue oftentimes, but I've noticed recently for some reason it's not working for some of my newer clients. So I've had to come up with a different way to explain what I'm wanting. And one of them is to drop the back bottom ribs gently, slightly down into the floor. And the other one is the breath, breathing into the low back, helps you maintain a slight contraction of your front abs, maybe 10 to 20%,
even on your inhale. So your belly, you're not belly breathing, you're not protruding your belly up to the sky when you inhale. So let's practice a few more. Inhaling into the low back, gently connecting the back bottom ribs to the floor, and then exhaling every drop of air out. And if you're not getting this right now, it's fine. It does take practice. I feel the connection of the back bottom ribs when I deeply exhale. I have to almost force it on the inhale, but when I exhale, I can really notice that connection. Now, the other thing that might happen to you is when I told you to connect your back bottom ribs to the floor, you might have lifted your chin to the ceiling, extending the neck a little bit. Make sure you maintain your neck nice and long so that you're not jarring your chin up or looking back behind you. So now we're going to add some mobilization of the pelvis. So when you think about going into a pelvic lift, and I'm not talking a bridge, we're not doing that yet, I want you to think about levitating your pelvis inside your body, but up off of the back of your body. So meaning inhale, and as you do, press the back bottom ribs down and just barely tilt and levitate, lift your pelvis slightly off the floor. I can't even fit my hand under here. I'm not lifting that high, but my pelvis is lifted and my glutes are relaxed and then released down. So I'm not lifting so high that I have to engage my glutes. Inhale, and as you do, press the back bottom ribs down so you're engaged through your ribs and core. Exhale, lift up the pelvis slightly off, like you're lifting the bones of your pelvis inside your body and up to the top of your skin. And then we release down and set them back down to the back side of your skin, if that makes sense. And again, inhale, engage and press those back bottom ribs down. Levitate the pelvis up, barely, again, can't even fit my hand under me hardly. And then release back. So I do want you to inhale the hips up, but I don't mind if you exhale at the top and inhale again at the top, and then exhale down. I just want you to inhale when you're lifting. The rest of it, right now, it doesn't matter to me. We're going to do this one more time, and then we're going to hold it up there. So you're just going to hold here. You're just going to keep the pelvis barely lifted off the floor in a tucked position. Remember, my back bottom ribs are down. I'm not arched, protruding the rib cage up or flaring it out. I'm slightly tucked, not overly. I don't want to have to overuse my glutes. I'm just trying to levitate my pelvis up, de-weighting my pelvis, putting a little bit of light pressure into my ribs, bottom ones in particular, and I'm just holding here. I'm gently squeezing my pelvic floor muscles. And I should feel a little bit of glute as I get more tired and a little bit of hamstring in the back of the thighs, but not a lot. If you feel any tenderness or pain in your low back, you're probably extending slightly and you need to lower down or just come out of it entirely. And then go ahead and release back to neutral. Now we're going to go into a true pelvic lift. So I want you to come up the same way we just did first. So inhale into your low back, press your back bottom ribs down, start to tuck the tail and peel the hips up. Once you're in the spot we just were in, now squeeze your glutes deeper and peel the hips up higher into a bridge. Then roll the body down, bone by bone. And again, inhale and exhale. Inhale at the top,
Press those back bottom ribs down, get them to touch before the rest of your spine does. And exhale.
Couple more. Inhale. Now, I didn't mention a canister, which I will talk about in a moment.
But if you're thinking about your torso as a canister and you're up at your top height, hopefully everything is in one straight line and you're not super kinked in your low back. Don't have
Your back where you're folded at your front abs and your back's hanging down and your pubic bone is up high.
You're not in the opposite direction and your ribs protruding up and your butt hanging down. You're in one straight line from your pelvis to your midsection to your rib cage. Your neck is free and relaxed. Your head and jaw are looking straight up at the ceiling, not arched back, nor jamming your chin into your chest. And exhale, soften behind your heart and roll down bone by bone. Let's do that one more time.
And again, inhale into your low back.
And press into those bottom ribs. Continue to float up. Exhale when you need to. Get every drop of air out. Be in one straight line at the top from your chest to your tail. Then soften behind your heart and get those back bottom ribs down and roll down bone by bone.
So going back to what I was talking about with the canister. So if you think of your torso as a cylinder or a canister or even a can of soda, which is the image I've been using a lot for my clients, you don't want there to be any kinks or crushed areas of the can, right? Because you want, if you think of a can of soda, you want it perfectly smooth and symmetrical, no areas that are crushed or crimped or kinked, because then you will have the soda, eventually the can will crack, the soda will leak out. And if you think of your breath as your power, which it is, if you have any kinks in the can, so to speak, you will be losing your power or your air out of you in the wrong way. And so it's important that our diaphragm, which is at the base of our rib cage, matches our pelvic girdle, right? Or pelvic bowl. So if, like me, I have a very, you can probably see it, I'm imagining you can see it in the video, I have a very flared or lifted rib cage. That means I have a little bit too much of an arch where my bottom ribs should touch the mat. And also a very wide or somewhat wide infrasternal angle, which is the angle where my ribs meet my sternum. And that should not be too wide. It should be about a 90-degree angle. Mine is wider than that, which affects a lot of things. But the one that we're talking about right now is the diaphragm. So with this way my body is currently, with my ribs flared and splayed wide apart, when I inhale and my diaphragm flattens and goes towards my pelvis, there's an area that is protruding out. So it is not in line with my pelvis. And the problem with that is that force that I need and the power that I get from my breath is being leaked out the front of me, if that makes sense, hopefully. So what I need to work on is, again, pressing those back bottom ribs down, knitting my front ribs together, all the cues we use in Pilates to help engage this and maintain not only symmetry of my diaphragm and pelvic girdle for power with my breath, but also to stabilize and protect my spine, low back, and pelvis and hips, right? So now we're going to think about the upper body. So, or move the upper body, I should say. So if you think of your back bottom rib cage as an anchor or a fulcrum, raise your arms to the sky on your inhale, and when you inhale, make sure you're inhaling into your low back. On your inhale, press your back bottom ribs into the floor and then lift and float up. Your arms can leverage you forward and then release back down. So for a lot of my clients, if I tell them to push their back bottom ribs to the floor to lift the rest of them up, they can generally feel a big difference in their neck, that they're not overusing their neck muscles, but they are using their upper abs. They also will notice that when they lift, unlike sometimes if we tell them to lead with their head, they really tuck their pelvis to get them up. But when they lead with pressing into their bottom ribs, they will often keep their pelvis nice and still. Now, I just exhaled up on that one. I'd rather you inhale up if you can, but that is hard to practice. Exhale when you need to. Inhale into your low back, press your back bottom ribs down. Exhale when you need to, and then return down. And then go ahead and just take a little twist, knees to the right, head to the left. And to the other side. And then release back to neutral. And let's maybe take the knees to the chest and release the low back. All right, use your hands on the back of your legs and rock yourself up to sitting. What I didn't mention, because I didn't need it, but when I talked to you about, maybe I did say it, when I talked to you about pressing your back bottom ribs down, if your neck extended back, that's when you would have wanted to put the blanket underneath your head to alleviate that tension in your neck. All right, so we're going to start with sitting tall, knees bent, feet on the floor, and hands can go behind your thighs. Grow really tall. Pull yourself to an upright position, and if you're thinking of your torso as a canister or a can of soda, there should be no kinks in the can. Any which way, forward, back, side to side. Everything should be straight and symmetrical. Take a big inhale. As you exhale, dropping and pressing your back bottom ribs backwards, curl partway back. And then roll up. And again, if you don't want your hands on your legs, reach them out in front of you. And then curl up. So really lead with that middle back where the base of your rib cage is. And lift. And down. And up. Now we're going to stay down. Curl down part way. And then you're going to pick up your legs in a chair position and balance. So picking up your legs, and if you do what I just did and lose your balance, you can also just pick up one leg if you need to and hold it there. What I don't want to happen when you pick up both legs is that you arch your back. So keep that scoop and tuck. And again, just hold up one if that's where you need to be for right now. I'm going to lift both and I'm going to hold here and balance. If you are holding up one leg, go ahead and switch to the other leg. Keep those abs scooped in, neck is long, shoulders are low, and you're just breathing and balancing here. Now set your feet down and then grow tall. Arch your back slightly, give yourself a good stretch. So what we're going to do is roll down, hopefully with control. You're going to keep your feet on the mat, arms reach out. You're going to curl down part way to be able to pick up one or both legs, both if you can. One is a little easier. And if you're just holding up your right leg this time, the next time we do it, you'll hold up your left. So keep your legs really still and try to roll your torso slowly away from your legs, but without straightening them out. Once you're down, let's curl back up and do it again. You should really feel your abdominals on this. So if you held up your right leg last time, hold up your left one this time. Curl part way back. Get into your core. Pick up your legs. Arms can be holding your legs or free.
You will need to make your hands reach off your legs if you're going to not just balance here, but you're going to roll back with me. So legs stay still. Core takes you down with control. Rolling away from your legs. It's hard to talk and do that. And then hug those knees in and roll back up. We're going to do this 2 more times. So go back to your right leg if you're doing a single leg balance. Inhale. Exhale. Curl back. Pick up your legs or one leg. Free up your hands. Hold your legs really still. Slowly roll away from them. Use the breath. And then pull them in and rock back up. This is a really good prep for the roll up if you're someone that struggles with the roll up. And then curl back. Lift up your legs. Balance here. And if and when you're ready, roll away from your legs, but don't straighten them out. And then hug them in. And roll all the way up. So now straighten out your legs. This is where, if you'd like a hand weight, you can use it for the roll up. This might be too heavy of a hand weight. It was the first one I grabbed. Actually was sitting on the floor over there, so I grabbed it. So legs are straight out in front of you. Feet can be, classically they're together. If it's more comfortable for your hips to have them apart, that's fine. Arms reach out in front of you. Sit tall. So you're going to slowly roll down and away from your legs. Soften those shoulders, really slow. Resist, resist, resist. And when you're down and flat, if you have a hand weight in your hands, don't reach it behind your head, just stop it at the ceiling. Now inhale into your back. Press the back bottom ribs down. And exhale, roll all the way up. Grow tall at the top. If you don't have a hand weight, it's fine to reach over your legs like we do classically on the roll up. So here we go again. Drop those back bottom ribs, tuck your tail, scoop your belly, roll down with control. Inhale, lift your head, press your back bottom ribs down. Now exhale the rest of the way. Grow tall at the top or reach over your legs. 2 more times. Contract and curl down. Roll down with control. Inhale when you're ready to lift your head. Exhale when you roll up. 1 more. I lost it a little bit on that one, which happens, especially to me. Roll-ups are a struggle for me. I have some mid-back issues, which is why I use the hand weight, which is why I do those prep ones first. So if that works for you, do that. So now we're going to roll onto our abdomen, and we're going to work on some swan lifts, but thinking about our canister that is our torso. So I'd like you with your feet apart, and then I'm going to look a little wonky laying down because of this frozen shoulder. So I don't even know if I'll be able to do this well, but I'm going to just keep my face hovering the mat. You can have your forehead resting on the mat. And I want you to think about, right now, actually, go ahead and put your forehead on your hands. Elbows wide apart, shoulders away from your ears, neck is long. So when we were laying on your back, I told you to determine if your rib cage pressed heavier into the floor than your pelvis or vice versa. And now I want you to do the same thing. So for me, the biggest, heaviest part that I can feel in the mat is those front bottom ribs, because remember I told you they were flared. So that would make sense that I feel them here. So what I need to do is push my back bottom ribs into this or towards the sky to soften my front ribs off of the mat slightly. That also makes me engage my glutes. It makes me push my pubic bone down, and that feels better to my spine. So it brings me into this more straight cylinder, right? Now I'm going to take my hands out to the sides, and for the first lift, I'm going to come up to just my forearms.
So when I lift, what I'm imagining is a can of soda. I'm just tilting it up. I'm not back bending, right? My belly muscles are going with me. So squeeze those glutes, squeeze your abs, and rise up to your forearms. Now, of course, there is a bend in your back, right? But it's not a deep bend. And I'm so muscularly engaged that I'm not hurting my low back. And then lower back down. What hurts me is lowering down because this shoulder is frozen, and so this position is not outstanding. But think about your torso. Lift up. Take your belly with you. And lower down. Now, if you feel like you can come higher safely, then do that. Maybe move your hands forward more. Higher meaning straightening your arms. So inhale, lift up, exhale, lower down. One more time. Inhale, rise up, exhale, lower down. And then go ahead and push back into a child's pose or whatever stretch. Oh, sorry. Feels best to you. I'm still getting used to this microphone on my shirt. Now, I've done videos on working on the deep glute muscles, the gluteus medius and minimus. We're going to work on that again today because a lot of times I find people with low back issues, pain, hip issues, their glutes, particularly their deep glutes, are weak. So what I'd like you to do is lay on your side. You can have your head in your hand or you can rest your head down, which is generally my preference because it keeps your neck straight. What I don't want, I'm going to lift my head just because of this microphone and talking to you. I think it'll be easier for me, for now anyway. What I don't want is your chin to your chest or your chin lifted up. So think of the back of the neck staying long. Then make sure that your shoulder girdle and pelvic girdle are in line, like you have a pole coming out of the ceiling down through your hips and shoulders, and they're stacked. Make sure the top shoulder is away from your ear, not hiked up. And hopefully this is not distracting in the microphone. And then I want you to make sure that you straighten out your legs towards the front of your mat. So my spine is either in the center or back of the mat, and my feet are angled slightly forward of that. Now when we move, I want us to move from not our pelvis, our bony hip, but our femur bone. So I can feel the head of my femur bone, it sticks out of me, and I can feel the one that's underneath me on the mat. That's where we move from, not from up high where you'd put your hands on your hips. That area stays still, and it's because your abdominal muscles stay tight. So we're going to take our top leg and lift it off the other one and just hold it. Just hold it up, keep it parallel, no turn out or turn in, and trying not to look at your leg, but if you do need to once in a while look at it to tell it where it is in space, that's fine. But trying not to look at it, try to imagine that your foot is at hip height. You don't want it too low, you don't want it too high. You want it right in line so that we know that the deep glute muscles are turned on and active and holding up that leg at hip height. If we hang it too low, we either have really bad body awareness, which is possible, or our glutes are too weak to hold up our leg. If we go too high, we're trying to compensate and get other muscles to help us because our glutes are weak, right? So from here, you're now going to bring your leg forward, and I should mention if you need this bottom knee bent because of hip issues on the bottom side, you can. Hold it forward and pulse it up. 1, little pulses, 2, 3, 4. Now my abs are in tight. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bring it over the other leg. I should have done about 8 repetitions. Let's go for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now bring the leg to the back. Don't let it fall or lift too high. Keep it in line with your hip and pulse. 1, 2, 3, staying parallel. 6, 7, and 8. Bring it to the front. Toes down, heel up. Pulse. 2, 3, 4. So you're internally rotated. 7, and 8. Over top of your other leg, pulse. 1, keeping your toes down and heel up. 5, 6, 7, 8. Now to the back, pulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It should burn. 7 and 8. One more set, and this time you're going to bring your leg forward. You're going to externally rotate. This is the hardest one to avoid, just pulse, to stabilize the pelvis, I should say. 7 and 8, bring it above your other leg and pulse. Keep it turned out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then to the back, it's still turned out. Squeeze your butt so that your pelvis isn't moving in a funny way. Pulse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Rest that leg down. It burns. Woo. Tap out your hip. You should feel all that work around that femur bone, the muscles around the femur bone that we just talked about. Now I'm going to lay my head down for this next one. I think it'll be okay. And we're going to do a banana lift, but we're going to keep our legs up and hold. So from here, I want you to feel that your bottom leg picks up your top one. So go ahead and lift your top leg up using your bottom leg and just hold. Now, obviously you're putting pressure into your hand on the mat. Maybe I will lift my head. I want you to make sure that your bottom inner thigh is working because it's pushing into that top leg. Definitely your abs should be pulled in. Your glutes can squeeze to protect you from arching your low back. And we're just holding and breathing. This top shoulder should be away from your ear. If you feel your top outer hip and not enough of your bottom inner thigh, bend that knee slightly and let it rest on that bottom leg. And just hold, hold, hold. Abs are tight, neck is long. Breathe and rest the legs down. Now bend your knees into a chair position in front of you. You're going to lift your top leg up into chair position off of the bottom leg. I know it's hard to tell because of my wide pant leg, but I'm lifted off. And then you're going to internally rotate your hip to touch your knees together. So your foot is staying just about where it is in the air, and then back up. So internally rotate and back to neutral. Do not kick your foot up high. You're just internally rotating your thigh to drop that knee down. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now we're going to go the other way, externally rotate. So the foot lowers because our thigh is rotating, externally rotating. So the knee will lift a little. I have no idea where I'm counting, so I'm going to say that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I could hardly describe anything to you because it burns. So what I wanted to say is you should feel all of this in those muscles right behind the head of your femur bone where we were just talking about moving from. If you felt a lot in the front of your hip, your knees may be too high up towards your belly and you may need to lengthen them down a little bit. You may have a really tight hip flexor or tight IT band, TFL, all those things that are in that area, and you just might need to lengthen your legs down and still do the same work. Now grab your ankle, pull this leg back behind you and stretch. Open up that hip flexor. Breathe. We're going to release this, go to the back of us, or lay on our backs, and do a piriformis stretch. So take your left ankle over your right thigh, if you were laying on your right side like I was. Whatever that top leg that we just worked is the one you'll use. And now you can lay like this. Maybe this is enough of a stretch for you in this external rotation. If it's not, flatten your pelvis, aim your tailbone down, but draw your knees up. Hold on to the back of that right thigh and breathe. Press your tailbone towards the floor though. Remember, we're still breathing into our low back and breathing every drop of air out of us. And then we're going to do this on the other side.
So I'm gonna turn over so I can face you. This is gonna be a challenge for me. Maybe I'll use this blanket because this is my sore shoulder. So instead of being down on my arm,
I'm going to have my head on this blanket. And I'm going to make sure that my shoulders are stacked, my hips are stacked, my legs are angled slightly forward of my body, and top hand is in front of my abdomen or chest to support me and stabilize me on the mat. Now we're going to lift that top leg up. Remember, we're not moving from our bony pelvis. We're moving from our femur bone. It's that bone that protrudes out of the side of your hip. And then we're going to just hold it, hold it, hold it. Get those deep glutes to start to activate. Abs drawn in to stabilize your pelvis. We're going to bring the leg forward. It stays at hip height. Don't let it drop. Don't let it lift too high. Just hold it at hip height. And then let's add some little pulses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Bring it above your other leg. Remember, we're parallel on this first set. Pulse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To the back of your mat. Pulse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To the front, toes down, heel up. Pulse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To the center, pulse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then to the back, still keeping that internal rotation, pulse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To the front, externally rotated, heel down, toes up, pulse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To the center, pulse. 2, 3, right out there in mid-space. 6, 7, 8, and to the back. But don't let this external rotation cause you to tilt your pelvis backwards. Stay stacked in your hips. Bring the leg behind you, toes up, heel down, pulse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Rest your leg down. That burns. Clearly, I need that work. So from here, we're going to be doing banana. We're just holding it at the top, and we're going to be using our bottom leg to pick up our top leg. So relax your bottom or your top leg onto your bottom one, and then use your bottom one to hold up the top. You will also feel your oblique muscles on the sides of your waist. Make sure your top shoulder is away from your ear. And breathe. Now I've got my top knee slightly bent because that seems on this side for my hip what works better for me not to just hold my leg up on its own and to use my bottom inner thigh. And if you don't feel your bottom inner thigh, lift higher and breathe. 5 more seconds. And rest those legs down. Good, now go ahead and bend your knees into a chair position. Remember, I said on the other side, if you feel real pinchy in the front of your hip or just the side of your hip and you're not getting into those glute muscles in the back, you may need to lengthen your legs down a little bit. And this side may be totally different than the other side, but just be aware that that could be the case. So now we're gonna hold up our top leg in a chair position above the other one. The foot is going to stay where it is in space, and we're going to drop our knee down, internally rotating this leg, and bring it back up. 2, 3, 4, working on that internal rotation of the thigh. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now we do it the other way. Foot goes down, knee goes up slightly. 1, 2, this one's harder for me. 3, 4, 5, abs are in. 6, you're breathing. 7, 8. It's harder for me not to just move my foot and instead to make sure my thigh is turning. Last one, and rest down. Tap out that glute if it's killing you like it is for me. Excellent. And then you're going to grab your ankle, pull that leg back behind you and stretch your quad and the front of your hip and breathe And then we'll roll to our backs once again and do a piriformis stretch for this side. So right ankle over left thigh if you were just laying on your left thigh. And then if you want to stay here and just push this knee back slightly, you can. Or if you prefer, just lift your legs up and stretch your piriformis that way. Always remember, if you feel any torquing in your knee, just flex your foot of the knee that is bent up on top of the other leg. And breathe, aim your tailbone for the floor. And release, you can hug your knees in. We're gonna rock up and we're gonna come onto all fours. So what I want you to work on here is some glute strength and really learning how to stabilize your body in all different positions. Obviously, it's easiest to stabilize when you're laying on your back on the floor because you have that good biofeedback and proprioception and ability to sense where your spine is based on the movement of or despite the movement of your legs and arms. Now we're free floating up in space. We're going to do it face down, but on our hands and knees. So lots to think about here. So if we go back to the thought of, or thinking about that canister, which is our torso, our pelvic girdle, our midsection, and our shoulder girdle should feel like they are in line. Our hands are directly under our shoulders. Our knees are directly under our hips. Now, for a lot of us, our wrists take a lot of the brunt of this, and so we need to shift backwards a little bit off of the wrists. But honestly, what I've found, if you just flatten that little cup of your palm that's not touching the mat, if you just try to get rid of the space under the palm by flattening down, that actually changes things and will help you to not feel so much pressure in the heel of your hand or your wrist. Now, thinking about your canister, it should be in one straight line. So for many of us, we look like this, where our belly hangs down and our ribs hang forward. Or for a lot of us, we look like this, where the small of our back, or our upper back even, is rounded. Can you straighten that out? Maybe you need a mirror to be able to determine if you're straight. But try to straighten out, get those abs drawn in, those bottom ribs tucked under, or if you think about when your spine was on the mat laying on your back and I told you to push your bottom back ribs into the floor, not so much that you're curling, but just to have some energy there, then maybe do that. Also, don't let your head drop or lift. You should be looking straight down at the floor. Back of the neck is long. Now we're going to take our right leg and we're going to drag it back behind us with the toes on the ground. So toes are tucked under. And then did that lengthening of your hip flexor cause you to move around in your torso, fix that can of soda that is your torso and keep it nice and straight. Flatten your palms if you changed the shape. And now try to pick up your back leg. Foot can be flexed or pointed, whatever works for you, but squeeze your glute and hamstring to lift up. When you lift your leg, do you change the shape of your spine like so? You should not. Flatten it out. Just lift from where your thigh meets your butt and hold up. Make sure there's some weight in both hands, not just your left side of your body, because you're lifting right leg. The left hand, the left knee should not take the load of you. Press your palms down to flatten them so there's no space, no air underneath your palms. Lower that leg down. When you're ready, lengthen your other leg out along the floor. Make sure you're in perfect position for with your cylinder or your can. So that means abs in, back bottom ribs pressing up slightly, palms are flat. Squeeze your left glute and pick that leg up, but don't change the shape of your torso. Abs pulled in and up. Maybe that means you can barely lift your leg up. Maybe you're someone who can lift it up high and not cause
yourself to shift. Breathe deep, squeezing glutes. So when we strengthen our glutes, especially while our hip is extended, it's really good to combat some of those bad patterns or imbalances that we have where our hip flexors are tighter than our glutes are strong. And then lower down. And you're going to push into a child's pose. Knees can go wide. I'm not going to bring my head down just because of this microphone. Breathe deep into your middle back. And now we are going to finish with a plank. We'll finish our harder work with a plank. We'll do a couple stretches after. But walk forward if you need to, if you need some mat behind you. Make sure hands are under your shoulders, knees are under hips. So here's how I like to teach plank. I talked about the canister nonstop today, so keep that, maintain that. Abs pulled in and up. Flatten your palms. Back of your neck is long. Now slide your right foot along the floor and then kind of slam the foot down slightly into the toes so that there's weight in your foot and not all of your weight is up forward in your hands. Can you push enough into your foot to barely pick your kneecap up off, the left kneecap up off the floor if you lengthened your right leg? Yeah, so that way you know you have some weight in this back leg. Now to go into plank position, if you choose to do this, make sure nothing shifts, core is tight. You're going to just slide your left leg back and hold. Press those palms to flat, hold your canister tight, breathe deep, keep the back of your neck long. If you hate this, come down to your knees and just hold a kneeling plank. That's absolutely fine, but whatever works. Hold, 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 squeeze your butt. I'm going to bring my heels together, toes apart. And then softly come down, push into a child's pose. Excellent. So we're going to sit up and do a little side bend and twisted stretch to finish. So you can sit with legs straight or cross-legged, whatever works. And I want you to roll your shoulders up, back, and down a few times just to loosen up the neck and shoulders after doing that plank work. And then make sure you also move your meat around so that you're sitting on top of your sits bones. Excuse me, now take your arms apart and then your right hand comes down to the mat and your left arm goes overhead as you side bend. Now you'll notice I don't get my arm very high overhead. As a matter of fact, today I'm not going to lift it, I'm just going to bend. But try to reach your top arm way overhead and get your right elbow to the floor. Just aiming your left sit bone down, make sure your pelvis isn't shifting. Just your torso, your rib cage bending. And then rise up and we'll go to the other side. And then just hold over here, go as low as you can. Like I can't get my elbow to the floor on this side, and that's okay, do what you can. But aim your right sit bone down. If you're bent to the left, and breathe into that right side. Now we're going to inhale to rise up, and then we're going to twist to the right. So take your left hand outside your right leg, your right hand back behind you, grow really tall. If you've ever twisted a can of Coke to crush it, that's what I want you to think of here. So you're just twisting the top and the bottom in opposite directions to wring out the midsection. Look back as far as you can behind you because you will get a better twist. And breathe. And then we're going to unwind and go to the other side. Breathing deeply. Neck is long, shoulders away from your ears. One more big deep breath, and then unwind. Let's finish with one big deep breath, arms reaching out overhead. Feel the height of your spine growing really long and tall on this inhale. And then exhale, your arms down. And you did it. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope that really helped you. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section. And I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.